It is 12:34 on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Welcome into Community Comment. I'm your host, Kevin Haugen. It is my pleasure to welcome in our guests this afternoon on the program. They are with the Beaver Dam Police Department. I am pleased to welcome into the conversation Lieutenant Jeremiah Johnson and Canine Officer Matt Bublitz. Thank you both so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yeah, it's been a beautiful, it's been a break from the rain, thankfully, last couple of days. So no flooding issues, anything. So it's been a nice day, hopefully for police too, and being out and about, and the weather's been cooperative, I guess, for the last couple of days.
Absolutely, yeah. And we got Best Dam Fest coming up, and
Yeah,
we were talking
yeah.
about the rain and how that affected Best Dam Fest. And I mean, we don't like working in the rain like anybody else. You know, we got all our stuff with us. We got our raincoats, we got our hats, we're ready to work in the rain, but we prefer drier.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah, it's been a lot this summer. So, yeah, I'm actually a little disappointed that Best Dam Fest is not doing the fireworks, and it is what it is. There's a no-wake zone in the water. Those fireworks draw a lot of boats. It's the heaviest boating traffic that we see in the lake throughout the year, I think. I mean, that's, at least from my personal opinion, that's what I see and look in the lake, and it's just the busiest that we've ever seen. So probably a wise choice until the water levels subside. You know, the boat docks are not the most efficient, you know, when the water level's at where it's supposed to be at in comparison. It's a little bit better, but yeah, it's not good conditions to be out there on a boat right now.
No, it's not. And I know with the fireworks that I believe they have pushed those back to, I want to say, like the first weekend in September.
Yeah, Labor Day weekend.
Labor Day weekend is when those have been rescheduled to. So it's happening. It's just happening at a later date than normal.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's a nice little thing for our community too, because I don't think anybody else is going to have Labor Day fireworks.
No. Yeah.
So it should be theoretically a big draw to the community because you're not competing with the 4th of July fireworks that just happen in every other community. And I think people at the end of summer will have something to look forward to. So that'll be a nice little treat for us at the end of summer.
Exactly. Again, we are joined with members of the Beaver Dam Police Department. If Ninja wants to flash the numbers to get onto the program, there we go, since I don't have those memorized. They are 887-9595 or 885-4446. If you have a question for the police department, feel free to call in during the program today. We will do our best to accommodate those questions and give some time to provide answers to those questions. So, again, the numbers are 887-9595 and 885-4446 if you want to get on the program this afternoon. And I want to start our conversation maybe focused in on our guest that you had brought in today. Since usually it's been a couple of appearances now, Lieutenant, where it's just been you and I having a chance to chat, which is great. But we always like it when you're able to bring in another member with the Beaver Dam Police Department who we can learn more about and understand different facets and different avenues of the agency. So, Officer Matt Bublitz, you are a canine officer, so that means you do have a canine partner. And if you don't mind, just start off talking about your time as a canine officer, and is that something that you've always done in your law enforcement career, or is that something relatively new?
Sure. It's actually relatively new. I was selected as the new canine handler when Yeti retired, replacing Officer Hall, who promoted to detective. So I actually have not had training yet with my initial training yet with my partner. We did dog selection at Josephine Canine over in Iron Ridge. So we've got a dog selected. His name is going to be Murph, and he's probably about 16, 17 months old now, a German Shepherd from Hungary. So I start training with him. It's a 5-week training process over in Iron Ridge. I'll start that at the end of July. So everything goes right, we should be hitting the road probably first weekend of September.
Fantastic. Now, is that a position, canine officer, something that you had sort of sought and wanted, or is it something that the opportunity presented itself and thought, okay, maybe I would fit well into this role, and just it worked out perfectly?
Sure. It's something that I'd always wanted to do as being in law enforcement. I've been in some facet of law enforcement for the last 20 years, so it was definitely on the bucket list, and the opportunity presented itself to apply. There's a selection process within our agency for those types of specialized positions, so went through the process and was selected. So just looking forward to getting paired up with my partner and getting to work. So
fantastic. Now, have you had a chance yet to meet Murph, and or has that not happened yet?
I met him during our selection process, and I saw him one other time when I stopped by for one of their law enforcement competitions they had over there. Got to see him for a little bit, but it's kind of like throwing your feet into the fire right away. I show up for the first day of class, and when class is over for that day, they send him home with you. So it'll be an adjustment, but it'll be fun.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where the rapport needs to be. It's just a time element. Rapport is built over weeks and months. It's something that I think as the time goes along that you'll both figure out the intricacies of one another, and that's it's an important thing to have a canine unit, I think, for a agency. And I know for the Beaver Dam Police Department, it's completely funded by fundraisers, donations. So it's great that the Beaver Dam Police Department has been able to operate a canine unit for so long and have 2 canines that they can cover both all shifts and have somebody on call if needed. And Lieutenant, I'm sure that's really helpful for the police department to have that at your service.
Absolutely, yeah. We are very fortunate to have access to 2 canines at our department. There are some departments that don't have any. You look at maybe like big sheriff's offices throughout the state, counties that have twice as many officers as us, they only have 1 canine. And so, like I said, we are fortunate to have that, not only the taxpayer assistance, but the generous community donations that we receive as well, to assist us with the financial part of having a canine. And we're happy to, Officer Bublitz and I are both very happy to work with the department that's supporting us administratively as well, to make sure that we have good canines, make sure we pick good canine officers, and give them the support that they need to help run the program. So that's huge. It really is like to talk about the average officer on the street, having a canine there, whether that be a situation where we suspect that there might be something illegal in the vehicle, having access to a canine to assist us with those types of investigations, or a tactical situation where we might need a dog to assist us in apprehending a suspect. Having that capability is absolutely huge. It gives us a very good crime-fighting advantage. And you know what else? A third little fringe benefit, it's nice to have a dog around the office too. It's kind of cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned the fundraising and community support. We just wrapped up our golf outing last month over at Old Hickory.
Yeah.
That was a combination with the Beaver Dam Police Charities, and we had our best fundraising year that we've ever had in terms of golf outing. It was new, the canine facet was new, but the amount we raised was the largest amount that we've had, so we definitely appreciate the support, and especially people's support on a rainy day where you look out the clubhouse and you've got fairways underwater. It was, people still hung around and supported the cause, so that was great.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. Again, the number to get on the program this afternoon for community comments, 885-4446. We do have a caller on the line, and I want to welcome them on to community comment.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Tyler. How are you?
Trying to stay cool on this hot day.
Oh, that's good.
Gonna
Yes.
get
No, I
hotter
agree.
yet. I got a question for each of them.
Okay.
The first question is for can any dog be a canine unit?
There have been dogs in the past, not with our agency, but there have been dogs in the past that have been used, or younger dogs from, a humane society, if they happen to fit, that have been used for single purpose, which would be just narcotics detection. Generally speaking, though, most of the dogs that are used for working dogs, whether it be military, law enforcement, are brought in from overseas. Typically your European countries, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, those types of places, because dog breeding over there is a little different than it is here in the United States. You've got a lot of bloodlines, and you've got people's names attached to those bloodlines, so they take it a lot more seriously. But I would say 98%, 99% of the dogs that you see that are working dogs are actually imported from overseas.
I was just curious about that, and then got one for you too, Jeremiah Johnson.
Go ahead, sir.
I actually got to talk with a friend of mine, and a friend of mine spotted you on 151 yesterday going somewhere, and then just curious, would you ever think about going for sheriff when Dale Schmidt retires?
Wow. Boy, I am happy here at the Beaver Dam Police Department. I like the city. I get scared when I get out into where there's a lot of cows and fields and cornfields. I need buildings and concrete. So, but thank you for offering that suggestion or question. That's funny though. But yeah, I look better in blue. Brown, not so much. Yeah. Good question
though.
though.
For your service.
Thank you very much.
you.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I was gonna kind of comment off of your question too. Is like you see bloodhounds, and you see them.
yeah,
They make excellent sniffing. You hear about cadaver dogs, hear about bomb sniffing dogs, and those bloodhounds are great for using their senses. They even have floppy ears that allow them to collect the scent. It's evolved over millions of years, et cetera, et cetera. You can talk about the breeds and whatnot, but you wouldn't want a bloodhound to be an apprehension dog that's trained to chase and eventually apprehend a suspect. It's just that's not part of their breed. So the German Shepherd has a little bit of everything. Has a good nose, can track, smart enough to listen to its handler, obedience, things like that, and ultimately, I suppose you could have even a Shih Tzu be a canine officer if you really had. Each dog, each breed has its advantages and could serve different purposes. You see them in airports where there's a different. You don't see German Shepherds in an airport sniffing for currency and contraband coming off of the flights. You see different breeds that do that. And we just tend to, in law enforcement, in a city police department, tend to take advantage of what the German Shepherd has to offer, which is more of a well-rounded for our purposes. But you wouldn't use a German Shepherd for bomb sniffing per se. You would get a different dog with a different personality that you don't need all this other extra stuff. It's a very specific purpose that they're serving. So each breed has its advantages.
Again, thank you for the phone call. The number is 885-4446. You can text your questions to 887-9595. And the point, Matt, that you made up or pointed to during your answer to Tyler's question about a lot of the breeds that canine officers or canines are when they come into the force, there are dogs that are bred overseas. And it's not cheap to go over there and get a dog, pick one out, bring it back. So, you bring up the fundraising part, and that's such a big part to be able to afford that process of bringing in a canine, bringing them here to the States, and now not only that, but the supplies and the food and the equipment and all that other stuff that's required. That's why that fundraising piece is so important.
Yeah, we there's a very small amount of an actual city police department budget that's used for the canine. It's most exclusively through donations, community support. We do have tomorrow another fundraiser. We've got a brat fry down at Tahoe Park as part of Best Dam Fest, running from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And at 3:30 there will be a canine demonstration with Boomer will be down at Tahoe Park. But a big shout out to our sponsors for the brat fry, Quick Trip, Johnsonville, and Leroy Meats provided us with the stuff we need to be able to run it. So if you're looking for a meal to support a good cause, stop down between 10 and 4 tomorrow at Tahoe Park, and we've got a brat fry going.
Great, fantastic. And another great point, Matt, that being a canine officer, another component that comes with that job is public appearances and doing demonstrations or going into schools and showing the canine dog off to students. And is that something that you kind of find neat as a cool part of the job, that you can show off what canines can do and have an opportunity to meet the public? And we always talked about this topic with the lieutenant about being able to just view and be in the public in positive situations and lights that, a lot of times police officers are dealing with people in negative situations, but it's always cool to have these opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Going out and being able to be out in the community and have your dog out and have people meet them. And, as a handler, not speaking from experience, but seeing other handlers, you got to get used to being second fiddle to your dog. The dogs didn't get the attention, but that's totally okay. And especially when you're dealing with, the schools and some of the younger kids, being able to have that connection through the dog is important. And that was one thing I kept in mind when I was doing dog selection early in April too. I wanted a dog that was going to fit the needs of the police department, not just from the law enforcement, apprehension, that kind of work, but also a dog that's going to be able to do well out in the public, going to the schools, doing demonstrations, that kind of stuff. So you kind of want a good balance of both. So that was kind of why I picked Murph.
Fantastic. Now, just I want to quickly rehash the timeline that you mentioned earlier. So I believe you had said training will begin in August. Is that kind of the rough time frame?
Yep. Last week of July it'll start, and we should, barring any setbacks, which there shouldn't be any, should be done with training the end of August. It's a 5-week program.
Gotcha. And then once that training's done, you and Murph are hitting the streets and patrolling. That's the end of that process. You guys are partners at that point.
Yep. And there is continuing training throughout the career of, as a handler and dog. There's mandatory training that you have to do twice a month to make sure that you're keeping your dog up and keeping your skills up as well. But the initial training is the 5 weeks.
Gotcha. Now, is there specific equipment and other things, vehicles that need to be able to be equipped to handle a canine? Is that something that you had to adjust to or still learning, or is that part of that training that's happening here in August?
So we've got one of our squads that's being upfitted right now as we speak up in Oshkosh with the canine cage. There's also a system that will detect heat temperatures, anything that's going on in the car that could compromise the dog's health. It's funny that technology has gone where it is. The system we've got now will actually electronically send me a text and call me if there's an alarm in the car, whether it's a heat sensor or the engine stalled, anything like that. So being able to use that to make sure the dog's healthy. But, it's quite a setup because you've got to rip everything out of the car.
Yeah.
You've got to put the canine cage in. You've got to do all the wiring that goes underneath. So it's quite a project to get that done. But so when that comes back, I'll work with Officer Schneider, who's obviously familiar with that type of stuff, and he'll run me through how to use everything. And plus, they run through that during our training as well.
Is that a resource that you envision using, during at least the initial stages of having a canine partner with Officer Schneider, who's been a canine officer for a long time, like going to him for questions, or it's like, how do we work through this, or figure out different ways to get connected with your canine partner? Is that something you see happening?
Sure, absolutely. We've got the benefit of having current Officer Schneider and 2 other handlers still on our staff. Officer Keener, who was Blade's handler, and then Detective Hall, who was Yeti's handler. So I've got 3 other people, including Officer Schneider, that I can go to with questions or, any advice that they might have. So it's a huge benefit to me coming in as a first-time handler. So
Fantastic. Again, we are chatting with the Beaver Dam Police Department here on Community Comment. We are joined with Lieutenant Jeremiah Johnson and K-9 Officer Matt Bublitz. And you mentioned a couple times already here during the program, Best Damn Fest is happening, and it usually brings out a little bit more security from the police the police department. You guys will be out and about patrolling the area, correct?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. So each year, as we see a new iteration of what Best Damn Fest used to be, Lake Days used to be something else before that. I'm drawing a blank, so it changes. The carnival is in a new spot. Not this year. It seems to be relatively the same, which is good. But yeah, we plan ahead and kind of look at where the public's going, how to best protect the public, and there have been current events throughout the years that have shaped how we respond to the physical security and our response to making sure that people are safe, making sure that the crowds are under control, all sorts of things. You take a look at, the Waukesha parade, the Christmas parade incident. And that has affected how we handle physical security, how we block off the streets, how we make sure that vehicles are not getting access to where pedestrians are, or at least mass amounts of pedestrians. We take a look at each, active incident that comes up through the news, and we try to learn from it. That's law enforcement in general. So we plan ahead several weeks and even months in advance with all the different organizations that are planning Best Damn Fest and figure out how to best cover it. So for instance, out on the lake, there were supposed to be fireworks, so we reached out to the DNR, we reached out to the sheriff's office. We said, we're going to have a lot of people out there boating. We have to make sure that the people who are boating are operating their boats in a safe manner, that they're not drunk boating, things like that. So we asked for a patrol out on the lake, and we set that up. But no fireworks. So in September we'll use that plan. We have to make sure that we have people in Tahoe Park. That so that's the Lake Association's event for Best Damn Fest, to make sure that when people are there, there's a beer tent set up there, that people are being orderly with the alcohol, and there's not underage drinking going on, there's not people arguing and fighting. We extended liquor licenses out in the street for certain taverns. The taverns will be open late and doing different things with different licenses. We want to make sure that we have enough officers there to handle the influx of people, and we want to make sure that we're working with each of those businesses too. For instance, Stormies, we make sure that they have their own personal private security bouncers, if you will, to make sure that they can handle their own stuff, and then we go and support them if they need it at that point. So plan ahead. We have extra officers that'll be down at the carnival in the street by the music events. We'll have officers rotating through to Tahoe Park on Saturday, as well as at the other taverns that are having music as well. So yeah, it's kind of, we throw some staffing at the issue to make sure that we can respond if needed. And we make sure that we have a safe and hopefully uneventful Best Damn Fest.
Fantastic. Now
Everybody can enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree completely. Now I feel like, as being in news, I should know this, but I don't. Are there road closures that we should highlight and note?
Yes, nothing that is very difficult to get around. Okay. So we're going to be closing the 200 block of Front Street. So Highway 33 will not be impacted, but if you're coming off of Highway 33 at the intersection of Center and Front, you're not going to be able to turn to get onto Madison Street, and you're not going to be able to go straight to go to South Center Street either, because the carnival and the music events are right there.
Right.
So you can continue on Highway 33 to get to Park Avenue and go out towards Piggly Wiggly and leave town. Like I said, South Center Street, so pretty much from the intersection of Front and Center all the way down to, I want to say, past Rowell and Mill Street. Okay. Is going to be blocked off, so we don't have people coming into the carnival. There will be spots to park, so you can park in a nice spot, walk into the carnival, and do just fine. You don't have to walk across town in order to get to the fun.
Fantastic. So,
awesome. Yeah, but those small, minor effects with the road closures, nothing that you won't be able to get around town.
Perfect. Now, we do have a text question that came in, and
good.
I'll send it over. Ninja, Jeff, board hopping, whoever wants to take and read it, by all means, go right ahead.
Okay, I can take it. Let's see. Kim would like to know who names the canine dog.
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question.
I actually was the one that selected the name. Obviously, I talked to administration at our department prior to that and after once I selected a name. But generally, the handler is the one that selects the name. I did it as kind of a ode to, Mike Murphy, from the United States military, one of the officers that SEALs that lost his life, as well as RoboCop's nickname. RoboCop's nickname was Murph. So I'm from that generation, so that kind of stuck with me a little bit. You do every once in a while see agencies that'll do like competitions for naming the dog, or you'll see fundraisers where the person that donates the most or collects the most can name it. But in the end, in my circumstance, it was up to me to select a name. So
Great, fantastic. No, it's a good question. I appreciate Kim sending that question in through the text line. That number again is 887-9595, or you can call 885-4446.
Okay, I've got one more question, guys.
All right, we'll go back to Jeff. with
Joe would
another
like
question.
to know. Joe would like to know how long do taxis run on Friday and Saturday nights?
No, that's a good question. I do not believe that they will be extended into the hours of 1 and 2. If you give me just a moment, I will let you know specifically. I'm going to look it up real quick and find out for you. But I don't believe they're extending it any more than they normally do on a normal Friday or Saturday. So
Yeah, maybe this will be a good time for a very short pause in the program.
Yep,
we can
and we'll
look
get
that
back
up,
to you.
and we'll
Yes.
get that answer when we come back. Again, we are joined with members of the Beaver Dam Police Department. We have with us Lieutenant Jeremiah Johnson, Canine Officer Matt Bublitz here on the program. Again, we have to take a quick break. More community comment is coming up next. That's 102 on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Welcome back into Community Comment. Our guests again on the program this afternoon are with the Beaver Dam Police Department. I'm joined with Lieutenant Jeremiah Johnson and K-9 Officer Matt Bublitz. The phone number to get on the program today is 885-4446, or you can text your questions into 887-9595. And right before the break, we did get a text question that came in wondering if the taxi service was going to be extending their hours this weekend with Best Stamp Fest happening, and we were able to get some answers for that during the break.
Yes, they are open and will take rides up until midnight on Friday and Saturday nights, which is their standard hours. Yep. But it's that's what they're offering through the city taxi service right now.
So midnight again, Friday night, Saturday night. If you're out visiting the local establishments here in Beaver Dam, there also we did mention. During the break, there are other ways or other means to get home safely. Bars tend to work with the tavern leagues and have safe ride programs.
Absolutely.
A lot of times it's just asking the bartender, "Hey, is there a number that I can call? I don't feel comfortable driving home safely," and they will get them connected with the people who can help out with that.
Absolutely. So yeah, you can always contact your bartender, let them know what's going on, ask them if they have safe rides available. I would caution you, though, tonight and tomorrow night, it's going to be heavy traffic. Mm-hmm. So the safe ride people may not be able to get to you in the time that you want. So please plan ahead. I highly recommend using designated drivers or planning another safe ride home of some kind. All the bars here in Beaver Dam, they will provide non-alcoholic beverages to your designated drivers, like within reason,
mm-hmm.
Soda, water, those sorts of things. They will be able to provide for your designated drivers because you're being the nice guy and making sure people are getting home safe. Okay. So yes, please talk to your bartender if you, at the end of the night, realize that it's not a good idea to get behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. Please ask for a safe ride and make those arrangements and make those responsible choices, because we don't want people to get hurt. We don't want drunk driving incidents, and they tend to happen when you got a lot of people getting together and enjoying beverages. So drink responsibly and plan ahead.
Yeah. Here's a purely hypothetical question that I'm curious to know. So say if somebody does have a little bit too much to drink, bars close, bartender leaves, they don't having so much fun they don't realize that they're too buzzed to drive home, and then they leave the establishment, the bar's closed, they get to their car and realize, I am in no condition to get into this car and drive home. Could they call 911 or call law enforcement and say, "Hey, I don't know what to do. Is there something you recommend, or can I get a ride home?" Is that something that would be a possible option for them?
So we are responding to that call no matter what when we get that call. But we will assist as needed. And I highly recommend, you're not wasting our time or anything like that. It's just highly recommend being responsible ahead of time and planning. But if it does come to that, we don't want people to drive, and we want people to get home safe. So we will respond to the call, and we will find a way to get that person home, whether that be an Uber, a Lyft, a taxi, calling a friend, calling a relative, and last resort, if it gets down to it, we will get them a ride home somehow, some way. We will find a way to do it. But we encourage people to plan ahead as much as possible, because if it's happening at 2:30 in the morning, we're also dealing with everything else. We're dealing with the people that did not make the choice to call us and ask for a ride. We're dealing with the people that got behind the wheel and perhaps crashed or got pulled over in a traffic stop and are now driving drunk. And it's a busy time. So, like I said, can't stress it enough. Plan ahead, make those responsible choices. Yeah.
And to help out our dispatchers,
911 is not
don't use 911.
Correct.
Use the Beaver Dam Police Department non-emergency number, or the Sheriff's Department non-emergency number. Don't use 911, please.
Yeah, no, that's
Thank you very much for pointing that out.
Very good point. And I mean, the same thing we hear with firework complaints. So there's options to report those without always having to call dispatch, because they are dealing with at times, especially overnight hours. I feel like they can be really stressful and tough depending upon the call that comes in. Those non-emergency numbers, I feel like you never really think about putting that in your phone. You always think, I know 911. That's right. I know the number. I feel like I have everything I need to know. But
and it's universal.
Sure.
911 here is the same as 911 in Madison, Fond du Lac, Green Bay, anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah, but honestly, in a community that you live and will be spending most of your time, honestly, having that non-emergency contact number for local police, for the sheriff's office, I think I'm sure you guys would agree, would be a good thing to put in your phone and have at the ready.
If you'd like to write it down, it's 920 887-4612.
All right.
And that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That goes to the Dodge County Sheriff's Office. They know that number is a Beaver Dam number, so the Beaver Dam dispatcher who's at Juneau will be picking up that phone call, and if they're busy, someone else in the dispatch center will pick that up too.
It's all about prioritizing certain calls that come in and
Correct.
making sure that they're dealt with in the correct order and manner, essentially.
Yes, yeah, and like we were talking about, when a 911 call comes in, those other calls get bumped. They drop what they're doing and they answer that 911 call first, and that's important to understand that if it's not an emergency, that's those things should not be used for 911.
Yeah,
because it's pushing real emergencies out of the way potentially.
Yeah. Real quick, back to Best Damn Fest. I wanted to ask before we went into break, will we see, is the bike unit something that's still around?
Absolutely.
Will we see them out and about this
100%.
weekend? All right.
Yes, you will see several bike officers out for Best Damn Fest, especially, not to mention throughout the summer we're out there. So
Great.
Yep.
Fantastic. I was wondering what the update was with that. We hadn't heard lately about the bike unit, so I'm glad to hear that's still around and
Still in
operating.
full swing, absolutely. Yep.
Fantastic. So again, stay safe. Make sure you plan ahead. If you're heading out to the bars this weekend, designate a driver. Figure out your plans ahead of time so
please. Yeah.
everybody can stay safe this weekend.
Absolutely.
Speaking about traveling on the roads here locally, I don't know much about this because we only had a few minutes before we got on air to discuss what we wanted to talk about. And one of the topics that Lieutenant, you brought up was low-speed vehicles. Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So a couple months ago, we had a caller on the show ask about some golf carts that are being sold in the city, and part of the advertising says perfectly street legal or words to that effect that you can go and drive this on the road.
Yep.
And we typically think of a golf cart as something that you cannot drive on the road. However, the advertising is correct. They are street legal here in the state of Wisconsin. And I just want to talk about that so people know what they're getting into when they purchase an item like that. So in order to operate a golf cart, you need to go down to the DMV and they have to take a look at it. Each one has a VIN number and it has certain aspects that are part of the equipment that are on that golf cart that make it street legal, and it qualifies under section in the DOT it's called a low-speed vehicle. Okay, you can drive them on most every street with the exception of things that are over 35 miles per hour. You get a license plate from the DMV. It is not through the DNR. It's not like an ATV. It's not a UTV. It's really through the Department of Transportation, Department of Motor Vehicles, and that license plate has to be mounted and it has to be licensed. You have to have a driver's license. All the rules of the road apply. You have to stop at the red lights. You can't drive on the wrong side of the road. You can't drive it on the sidewalk. It's essentially like you're driving a car, but you are in this golf cart that meets the criteria as a low-speed vehicle. So there's certain things that the DOT has put in as far as rules. The seat belts, headlights, turn signals, the distance of the wheels, how long it is, the size of the engine. And the people at the DMV, they will know what qualifies as it. So if you have a golf cart and you want to drive it in the city of Beaver Dam, you have to go to the DMV and get it licensed first. And once you do that, then you can. There are some golf carts out there, like the classic golf cart that runs on propane where you reach down and you throw it in reverse or forward or whatever. Those aren't going to qualify because they're not. They don't meet the criteria that the DOT had set for the engine and all those specifications. So the ones that are being sold in town that I've seen seem to qualify. So if you're not sure, ask the DMV, get the specifics from the dealer, and see how you can license it. And we will honor what the DOT says. So if it's in the city of Beaver Dam and you have a license on it, we know that you went to the DMV and it's valid and it's one of those qualifying low-speed vehicles that have the safety standards so people don't get hurt.
Sure. Yep.
And as long as you're driving it like you would a normal motor vehicle within all the laws and rules of the road, you're good to go.
So really, it seems like the biggest thing is making sure that that vehicle is licensed and you have some sort of registration for that vehicle. So it essentially makes that street legal, I guess, in a sense. Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep. And then we handle it as far as police officers. We handle it no different than any other motor vehicle on the road or ATV. It's just when you're driving it, you gotta pretend it's a car.
And I'm assuming it has to at least reach the speed limit or the minimum speed limit. Is there any sort of qualification?
So there's not really a minimum speed limit in the city of Beaver Dam on the roads that a low-speed vehicle will be going on.
Okay.
Out on 151 and interstates, there are minimums, but here in the city, there's no minimum speed.
Okay.
I highly recommend keeping up with traffic without going over the speed limit. That helps solve issues. I mean, 10 miles per hour is too slow, in my opinion. You will anger people, you know what I'm saying? But there's not a law stating that you have to go a certain speed. There is a law that says you cannot impede traffic. So if you're driving so slow that cars are starting to back up and traffic is building up and you can't make it through a green light before it turns red, that's an issue. Okay, so don't be doing that. But yeah, in general, I mean, just those vehicles are designed to keep up with traffic. So do that. Yes.
So
answer your question. Yeah.
long story short, yeah.
Yeah. Clear as mud, right? Yeah.
So again, if anybody has any concerns or questions, if they're looking at maybe purchasing a golf cart or something that's being sold around town, best place to go to get those is DMV.
DMV or the DOT website
DOT
through
website.
the state of Wisconsin, and they have all the qualifications for you that you need to have on your vehicle before it gets licensed. And if it does get licensed, you're good to go. So.
And it's really important to do your research and homework before pulling the trigger, spending money, purchasing something
Correct.
that somebody might say something, but that doesn't necessarily make it true or fact. I'm sure there's a lot of people will promise things when they're selling something.
Which was the caller's concern.
Correct.
Originally.
And
Yes,
then
yes,
and
right.
then
Are
you
you
get,
sure? Because we just did this ATV, UTV thing, and you just said golf carts aren't legal. And technically, you're right, they're not.
Yeah.
But those ones are. I mean, they're not. It's funny because it's a cart that you would drive while you're going golfing, but it's not really the title of the motor vehicle. So.
which is, I mean, if you've seen the golf carts that we are
Talking
about,
about.
I mean, they're not your typical.
Yeah.
You see them on a golf course. People are taking them out. I mean, they are almost, you could look at them as a UTV. I mean, they are closer to that in my mind than you would look at a golf cart. But
Correct.
there's still those proper procedures and policies that need to be followed in order to make them street legal, to operate them on city streets.
Yep, and it comes down to safety. The reason why they pick these standards and these specifications for these vehicles is they want to make sure that if an accident occurs with them, it's not a total disaster.
Right.
You know, and that's the same reason why, you know, throughout years past, we've seen seatbelt laws come into place. Mandatory seatbelts being installed on vehicles way back in the day. I remember when I was growing up, I was able to sit in the back seat of the car. I was able to ride on the tailgate as a kid. My dad even put a couch back there for me. It was great. It was fantastic. It was a lot of fun, but it's not
safe.
legal anymore. It may
Yeah.
not have been safe back then. I survived. All is well. No accidents. Didn't go flying out, but thank God my dad was a good driver. But yeah, that kind of stuff ain't illegal anymore. So we've learned throughout the years. Now we have airbags. We've learned side impact airbags, crumple zones, all this stuff, all this technology that's saving lives. And that's why a golf cart by itself without these specifications is not street legal.
And that's why we leave it up to DOT to do the determinations too, because I'm going to be honest, if somebody were to come up with it'd be hard for me, given of how things have evolved in terms of golf carts and ATVs.
Yes.
I'm not an expert in it. I have to go by whatever the laws and ordinances are. That's why we defer to DOT. We're not trying to brush it off. But really, they're the experts in that field. They handle what's going to be permissible and what's safe and what isn't. And the same thing with the DNR in terms of ATVs, UTVs. They're the experts in that. So those are going to be your two best resources if you have any questions before buying.
Yeah. It's rare that we would go on a traffic stop and get out the tape measure and figure out the distance in the wheels.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
lift up the hood and take a look at the engine and measure. Oh yeah, that is 50 cc's. As a matter of fact, yeah, 50 cc's right there. You can tell. It's that licensing procedure based on what the manufacturer is telling the DMV and the DOT. And we see that license plate on there, and we verify that it is the license plate that's on that vehicle, and vice versa, that matches up. Then we know that it meets the equipment, requirements. So long as you don't modify it.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
We see that
can
with
of worms,
pickup
yeah.
trucks.
Yep.
Yeah, where people modify wheelbases and lift kits and smokestacks coming out of the back and tinted windows. I mean, you could go on for days and talk about that, but as long as you're taking the manufacturer's stuff that is installed and you're taking it to the DMV and they certify that they can get a license plate on it, you're good to go.
Yeah, with a couple of months here into the summer, really it being the first extended period of time with warmer weather, how has it gone with the new ATV, UTV ordinance? Have you seen any issues, complaints, or problems with that, or has things gone pretty smoothly?
So without having the records in front of me, we've had several UTV and ATV traffic stops. And we've issued several citations, and the citations are usually associated with people that are intentionally and recklessly operating those vehicles. So if we do happen to pull somebody over for speeding or some sort of equipment violation, and they are in good faith operating that vehicle, we handle it just like we would with a motor vehicle traffic stop. Yeah. We have, like I said, had a couple of instances where someone is choosing to operate an ATV. Essentially causing a disturbance. We've had one like that, and they were issued the appropriate citations because, well, when you drive like a maniac, you're going to get hurt, and we can't have that. Yeah. So, yes.
So it seems like it's just normal. It's been within the realms of things that you would expect to have calls for and
Correct.
respond to and write citations and stuff of that nature for during this initial couple of months.
It is at a level where we can handle it. You know what I mean? It's not like we are overwhelmed with calls of service involving ATVs and UTVs. And when we observe this kind of stuff happening out on the road, it's no different than the other motor vehicles. Excuse me, got a frog in my throat.
Nope, it happens to everyone. No worries. Again, we are chatting with the Beaver Dam Police Department here on Community Comment. Just a little while ago, the agency put out an alert, I guess you could say, on Facebook of a scam that's been popping up here in the area last couple of days or weeks or so, and it's involving an individual, and including a young child, who are selling Quick Trip gift cards. They've been using this under the guise of a baseball fundraiser, supporting that sort of cause. But then when the cards are purchased and they take them to go redeem them, there is nothing on those cards. But just maybe is that something that's still continues to be investigated?
Yes. So we have not come across any new instances that have occurred after we put the alert out. It seems like the people have either stopped or left the area. So as the scam goes, they come into your business or knock on your front door and say, hey, we're selling Quick Trip gift cards, $20. You get a $25 gift card and save some money, whatever the deal is. The problem is the gift card that they're handing you when you pay cash for it is completely empty. So they're handing you a piece of plastic that you just paid $20 for, falsely representing that there's money on the card, and you don't know until you get the Quick Trip, and lo and behold, it's completely empty. So that's what we're stumbling across now. Victims are continuing to come forth and say, hey, I bought from these people. The sad part here, and I was talking with Detective Coons, who's handling this case, the sad part here is that you have a child, clearly a child, 8 to 10 years old, that is either willing or unwillingly in on this particular scam. So I don't know if the child realizes that the gift cards are empty or is just doing what his adult is telling him to do. But yeah, there's a child there sitting there. Oh yeah, I'm selling these gift cards. It's for my baseball team.
Sure.
And is in on it. So that's another kind of exacerbating factor here that we are really looking into this and making sure that this kid is in good hands. So Detective Coons has looked into it. We've made some headway. We are halfway there to tracking them down. We do know who the suspects are. It's just a matter of time before we get our hands on them and make the appropriate accountability for them. So, like I said, if you have fallen victim to us, please either come down to the Beaver Dam Police Department or call us. And if you want to proceed with charges against these suspects, we will fill out the appropriate paperwork and hopefully at some point in time be able to recover your money. If that does not happen through restitution, at least then we are holding the adult accountable for essentially contributing to the delinquency of that particular minor. So, it's kind of a disturbing thing to hear about. And we've got, it's $20. I don't think this is putting anybody out on the street. But when you have a whole community that's being disrupted by this, and I mean, it certainly doesn't make you feel all warm and fuzzy inside to see this happening, it's a problem. And that's how we're looking into it and making sure it doesn't keep happening.
And if you're ever approached by this sort of circumstance, and you're not sure about it, ask them to come back. Because if you've got somebody that's trying to get donations, or I try to get donations all the time with
Right.
Canine and charities. If you've got somebody is legitimately trying to get donations, and you say, what, I can't make a decision right now. Why don't you come back in a couple days? Use that couple days to do your homework. Check up on it, see if it's legit or not. Call the organization that they were representing to find out whether or not it's a legit organization. And then if they're truly trying to get donations, they're going to come back. If they're not, you're not going to see them again.
Yeah. There are plenty of organizations that my kids are involved with that sell script cards, and Quick Trip is part of that, where they end up selling X amount of dollars. That business that is selling the gift cards gives the organization a percentage of whatever the sales are, or a discount for those cards, and they're completely legitimate. They really are. The issue is we have someone who doesn't know who they're knocking on the door, or I'm sorry, the person that is knocking on the door is not known by the victim. If my neighbor comes to the door and they're selling a gift card, I'll probably buy it because I know it's my neighbor. I can track down, I'm familiar with them. I see their kids. That's the problem. Is we got someone who's going on the trust of the community and taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is purchasing things from a reliable source.
Exactly.
If you, like you mentioned, if you know the person, you can track them down, or you trust them to sell you something that's legitimate, then
Right.
there isn't that hesitation, or that you feel comfortable enough to buy something from them. But for somebody that you don't know, is it recommended to say, maybe not now, let me, again, like Matt, you mentioned, let me think about it, let me do my own research,
Yeah.
and then maybe a couple of days I can reconsider, and then if it is legitimate, that I have no problem buying whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah, I think that's a safe thing to do. The other thing you can do too is if you have that gift card, you can go on your phone to the Quick Trip website, type in that number, and you will know how much money is on that card right then and there.
Yeah.
So you can also call the 1-800 number on the back of those gift cards. Either way, in the website or the phone number, you can verify that the money is truly there. So.
And it's unfortunate that now in our day and age that it seems like there are just hundreds and hundreds of scams that keep popping up every once in a while that people unfortunately fall for, because they are at times seem very convincing. You see emails or people who send something in a flyer or something through the mail, or other means through electronic scams that people get suckered into in a sense that it's something that is just prevalent nowadays. I know the police department has held classes, I believe, in the past where
Absolutely,
they've
yes.
tried to work through some of these things and provided some education. Is this something that you envision the agency doing more of in the future? Or?
Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely necessary that we do. Mostly because, like you said, education. It's one of those things where you don't know it's a scam until it's too late. And recovering that money is almost near impossible, because even if you do identify the suspects, that money's gone already. So it's not readily available to be given back to you. That's the sad part. Same thing with the bigger financial crimes on the internet, where you end up sending money to your grandson that got arrested in some random county for OWI, and it turns out that the person calling is not even from the sheriff's office. It's just someone impersonating them. That money's gone. That's the real problem. Is like, oh, okay, there's no coming back from that. There's no refunds. It's gone. And that's why the education is so important, is because we are helpless as police officers even to get that money back. We can take the information, we can track the suspects down, but after a certain point, even if we arrest them and we take them to jail, they may not ever do it again. What about your money? It's gone.
Yeah. Is that something you still recommend people in the public
100%.
report and
Yes.
and contact?
Yes.
Even though I lost the money, but still reporting that to police.
Yeah, and sometimes it's embarrassing to call.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you have to explain, like, oh, I fell for it. Like, if I fell for it, oh man, it's that's embarrassing. And we're all human. We understand that that's going to happen. But yeah, call it, because this helps us stop it in the future.
And that's the thing too, is that, if it's not something in the mail, then it's a phone call. If it's not a phone call, it's an email. If it's not an email, it's somebody stopping by your place of business or your residence trying to sell something. But if it does happen and you're able to report it, you never know whether you're the first person in that scam, and now we have that information. We can pass it on to other law enforcement agencies or make a public notice. You might be the last person in that scam, but you never know one way or the other. And we have resources available to us as an agency to be able to send that information out to other agencies within the state. So we might end up being a collective group of 50 other people have been scammed, or we might be the first one and send it out and be able to warn people so that others in the community and outside of the community are not victims.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
And that's exactly what he's talking about. So, I mean, we were able to develop leads because additional victims called. The first one that we saw in that Facebook post, we had a picture of what the suspects looked like. Well, guess what? The next person called in, and we were able to determine a vehicle description. So we were able to track those things down because those additional victims are calling in, and it all pieces together, and hopefully we can bring these people to justice.
And unfortunately, and to be honest, not every one of them is going to have a great outcome. I mean, there
Correct.
are going to be
Yep.
times that
Yep.
that you're going to report it to an officer, and the unfortunate thing is if it's somebody from overseas, the chances of something happening in terms of enforcement or getting the money back are slim. But it's always better to report it and see what the options are than to not report it at all.
Gotcha. I believe we have a question on the text line, if I'm reading that correctly. We only have a few minutes left, so just in time. Let's head over to Jeff, who will pass along that question to us.
All right, another canine question, actually. When canines are at your home, can they play like other dogs, having toys? Can they sleep with you, or do they stay locked up most of the time? Just curious how their lives are besides work.
Sure. I can answer part of the question. I haven't gone to the training, and I don't know too much about it because it goes hand in hand with the training as well. So I think when you have a working dog, you want the work to be the dog's playtime. So I'm gonna get to play. I'm gonna hop in the squad. We're gonna go out and have a good time, right? Now, that being said, you also want a dog that is going to be approachable in the community, which is where the home life comes in. So you see a mixture. You've got some people that are more of the hardcore. It's a working dog, needs to stay outside. It's going to live outside 24/7. That's where it lives. Then you've got the mixture of people where it's like, okay, the dog's going to live outside for the majority part of the time, and then it's going to be inside to socialize and be part of the family. And then you've got maybe some other circumstances where the dog's in the house more often than not. And I think you see that a little bit more later on in the canine's career. Once you've built a rapport and a relationship with that dog, the dog's been around your family. I think there's a certain level of trust. But, one thing to remember that, even bringing it into my home or someone else's, it's a working dog, and it has a set of skills that you're not going to see in I have another dog at home as well. His name is Riggs. You're not going to see in rigs. So there's always kind of that little bit of an edge where, it's a working dog, it's trained to do certain things, but in the end, you also want to socialize them too. So, Murph is probably going to be like a 70-30, 60-40 outside to inside ratio. He does have a kennel outside. He'll have a living space outside, but he's also got a spot inside too. So I think it depends on the handler. It's on the dog. Some agencies have it written in their policy where the dog has to be outside. We don't have that in our policy, but there are some circumstances where there isn't a choice.
Great. Thank you again for that question. And that'll just about wrap up our time here on Community Comment this afternoon. Again, we were joined with members of the Beaver Dam Police Department. Want to thank our guests for coming in today, Lieutenant Jeremiah Johnson and Canine Officer Matt Bublitz. Thank you both again so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having us.
And that will do it for today's Community Comment.